Good enough, you got it?
You're ready to roll? All right. The rest of us are ready to roll? All right. Hi, everybody. So before I officially call the meeting to order, we'll take a moment just to run through what's on our agenda so that we're all on the same page. Kim is ready in the BevCam booth. Thank you, Kim, for getting us rolling and making sure that we're able to be live streamed for folks to access. So this evening we'll begin with a special resolution for Mark Foster, who is retiring after 44 years of service. I won't say more about that now, so I won't spoil the resolution, but we're happy to have Mark here with us this evening. We have two public hearings, one for 7:35 and one for 7:45. And if there are members of the public who are here to speak in either of those or who come to speak, you can sign up on the papers in front of the clerk at any point, and we'll take public speakers in the order they're signed up. And then we have some routine business to take care of. We'll take a break for some subcommittee work, and then we'll come back to finish everything up. So with that, I'll officially call to order this regular meeting of the Beverly City Council, Monday, December 4th, 2023, 7:00 p.m. Ms. Kent, will you please call the roll?
Bowen? Here. Crawley?
Here.
Feldman? Here. Hausman?
Here.
Rand?
Here.
Rotundo?
Here.
St. Hilaire?
Here.
Sweeney?
Here.
And Flowers.
Here. Thank you, Ms. Kent. Councillor Crowley, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Councillor Crowley.
Sinus infection.
So without further ado, we'll start right in with our resolution in honor of Mr. Foster. And I'd like to invite Councillors Rotundo and Sweeney to go to the podium to read that resolution on behalf of the council, if you would.
A resolution acknowledging the service of Mark Foster to the City of Beverly. We recognize Mark Foster, who has tirelessly served the City of Beverly for 44 years with the Beverly Emergency Management Agency, BEMA, and Massachusetts Task Force 1, and is retiring as head of BEMA. Whereas Mark Foster, a lifelong Beverly resident, grew up on a small family farm in the Beverly Cove neighborhood. It was there that his commitment to public service in Beverly began, as he served as an Eagle Scout in Beverly's Troop 8. Whereas in Mark's high school days, he took an interest in the Beverly Auxiliary Fire Department, where he and his friend George Hardison pumped out many cellars during flooding events with a ladder truck can in the body of an old truck mounted on a surplus fire trailer. Whereas after graduating high school, Mark attended Northeastern University, where he majored in electrical engineering. It was in his third year at Northeastern that he chose an elective psychology course and was assigned to join a volunteer group to observe interpersonal relationships. This is when Mark joined the Civil Defense Organization, and he has actively participated with the organization every Monday night for over 50 years. Whereas Mark became the Civil Defense Director after the death of Director Burns, and began to build the North Shore Civil Defense Council, where, with the help of his wife Robin, he began a monthly newsletter called The Signal. Mark would distribute this newsletter to council members and to the Massachusetts Department of Public Safety. Whereas Mark had read in the Federal Register, while working as the manager of product safety for Parker Brothers, that FEMA was offering a $2.8 million equipment grant for newly formed search and rescue teams around the country to become part of FEMA's Urban Search Rescue Program. It was then that Mark and his unit used their Yankee ingenuity and began to build their regional team with surplus supplies. Whereas former Mayor Bill Scanlon referred to the FEMA campus at Beverly Airport as Fosterville. Whereas in 1996, Mass Task Force 1 was deployed to the Atlanta Summer Olympics and would later be deployed as a search and rescue unit in 1999 to the Worcester storage fire under the orders of President Clinton.
Whereas on September 11, 2001, Mark Foster received the call that his unit would be deployed to the World Trade Center for their first real deployment to assist in the search and rescue efforts after the attack. There, he and his team spent 8 days setting up logistics, inspecting structures, and sifting through the rubble in search of survivors. Whereas Mark and his team spent a week in Louisiana at sites impacted by Hurricane Katrina, and they have been to numerous other hurricane-impacted sites since then, notably New Jersey in the wake of Hurricane Sandy, to assist with recovery efforts. In addition to the emergency response needs due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Task Force 1 responded to natural disasters nationwide during 2020, further risking both exposure and their lives to respond to these disasters during the height of an international public health crisis. Among their deployments were the Oregon wildfires, in which 20 members participated, Hurricane Laura recovery, 48 members participated, Tropical Cyclone Delta recovery efforts in Louisiana, 3 task force members participated, Hurricane Zeta recovery efforts in Louisiana, 2 task force members participated, and recovery efforts for hurricanes Beta in Texas and Sally in Florida, in which 1 member participated. Whereas Mark forged a relationship with the Massachusetts and Vermont National Guards, where they shared yearly training events with each other. Whereas Mark and his team were instrumental in helping the city during the COVID-19 pandemic, getting personal protective gear for hospitals, nursing homes, and Beverly's first responders, and keeping city officials updated and informed daily. Whereas Mark has been happily married to his wife, Robin, for over 41 years. Robin also has a long history of service to the city of Beverly through her career with the Greater Beverly Chamber of Commerce and North Shore Music Theater, as well as her work with Beverly nonprofits, such as Grateful Friends and Beverly Homecoming. Mark and Robin served as Beverly's Grand Marshals for the 2023 Holiday Parade on Sunday, November 26th. Whereas Mark and Robin raised 2 children in Beverly, Kate and Sarah. Kate, a Beverly High School class of 2002 graduate, now resides with her husband, John Helter, and their 2 children in Pittsburgh, PA. Sarah, a Beverly High School class of 2004 graduate, now resides with her husband, Adrian Hartline, and their 2 children in Marblehead. Whereas, during the pandemic, Mark spent time in his backyard building a ride-along train for his grandchildren, Emma, Allie, Ben, and James, as well as all of the neighborhood kids. There, Robin saw a silver lining in the pandemic for Mark, because he was able to spend some time relaxing with his grandchildren. Mark Foster's service to the city of Beverly over the past 44 years has been unparalleled. Now, therefore, we, and this is signed jointly by Mayor Michael P. Cahill and the Beverly City Council, wish to express the utmost gratitude for the hard work and dedication of Mark Foster to our city's emergency management team, FEMA's search and rescue units, and our entire community, and hereby order that the city clerk spread a copy of this resolution upon the city records. Thank you for your service to Beverly, Mark.
All the stuff you read about me, really you have to thank Robin for, because if she didn't give me the time or let the leash a little loose so I could go out and do these things, I wouldn't be able to do them. But it's so. You want to say something quickly?
No.
I may follow suit to what she says, but okay. And it's been a great ride. Always every time I come in here for a budget, I'd always get the support of the Board of Aldermen, and it's been a great, terrific ride. Thank you very much. I hope to do a little more with the city. I don't know what doing yet, but I'll probably be involved somehow. So thank you very much, and I really appreciate this. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Councilors Rotundo and Sweeney, for presenting that on behalf of the council, and also, as you noted, our mayor. And thank you, Mark and Robin, for being here. And Mark, thank you for your service. I know it was well stated in the resolution, but there's really not adequate words to capture our gratitude for those 44 years, and Robin, for you as well. Counselors, to make it official, I would entertain a motion to approve Order 308. That's the resolution we just heard for Mark Foster.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 9-0. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. I would entertain a motion to take a 5-minute recess if folks would like to. Oh, Mark, if you don't want to sneak out just yet, they might want to congratulate you one more time. A 5-minute recess if people would like to get to congratulate.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. We'll take a 5-minute recess and we'll be right back. Thank you, everyone. I will call us back to order. And again, just a word of congratulations and word of thanks for Mark Foster for his years of service. And what a pleasure to be able to honor him here this evening. Before we jump into our agenda, I want to take a moment just to acknowledge some of the city staff that are here with us this evening and a few others. We have incoming Ward 2 Councillor Danielle Spang is here this evening. Thank you very much, Councillor to be Spang. And school committee member from Ward 6, Lorinda Visnick, is here back in her familiar seat. It's been a while. Nice to see you back there, Ms. Visnick. Our city council budget analyst, Mr. Jerry Perry, is here this evening. Thank you, Mr. Perry, for being here. Brian Ailes, our city finance director, is here as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Ailes, for being here. I missed the chance to introduce the fact that both our human resources director, Pauline Texera, and our purchasing agent, Dave Gelano, were here helping to honor Mark Foster. So thank them for being here with us. Gabriel Hannafin, our airport director, is here, as well as Catherine Barrett, director of grants for the city. Thank you both for being here with us this evening. And the assessors are here, who will get their extra due when we get to 7:35, but thank you, assessors, for joining us. We'll get to that public hearing in short order. So, Ms. Kent, let's go to communications from His Honor the Mayor, please.
Order number 292, dear Honorable City Council, I respectfully request your approval of a loan authorization of $690,000 to facilitate improvements to Hallcroft Park. This loan authorization will constitute a full appropriation of the estimated project cost, which is necessary to make available PARC grant funds in the amount of $400,000. Additionally, the city has submitted a request to the Community Preservation Committee for a $200,000 award to support the project. Both of these awards will pay down the loan authorization amount as stated in the order language, and the remaining $89,800 of the authorization will likely be covered by combination of Lynch trustee funds and the general fund, ultimately avoiding any borrowing. We look forward to discussing this plan improvement along with the method of project funding at the upcoming public hearing. The order must be published at least 10 days prior to final passage, should be referred to the Committee on Finance and Property for a report thereof, requires a public hearing. Where the order authorizes the issuance of bonds, it will require a 2/3 vote of all the members of the City Council. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. Please refer that to the Committee on Finance and Property to set that public hearing.
Order number 293. Dear Honorable City Council, Federal Aviation Administration regulation requires that municipal airport sponsors provide fair market value to the airport for any non-aviation municipal use of airport property. The carpentry shop of the Department of Public Services is located on airport property, specifically on a portion of Assessor's Parcel ID 90-4 located at 0 LP Henderson Road. In accordance with FAA regulations, the City of Beverly and Beverly Airport Commission have reached an agreement on the terms of the lease for the DPS partial. Mass General Law, Chapter 90, Section 51F requires the mayor and city council to approve any lease entered into by the Beverly Airport Commission. The lease provides for the use of the DPS parcel for a term of 10 years with the possibility of 2 successive terms of 5 years each. The annual base rent for the DPS parcel is $48,000, which was established by an appraisal done in September 2022. The terms of the lease provide that the city may offset the annual rent with a combination of credit for improvements previously made to the carpentry shop and the city's annual contributions to the airport to support its operations, including but not limited to direct costs of employee benefits, insurance premiums, payroll taxes, direct legal costs, certain personnel costs, and indirect costs to the airport. In light of the offsets, the parties do not anticipate the city will end up transferring in the foreseeable future funds to the airport for use of the DPS parcel. Should there come a time during the term of the lease when the general fund no longer supplements airport operations, a rental payment may be due. However, general fund money that previously has been used to supplement the airport would be then available to cover the payment. Please note that the FAA has approved the lease and the Airport Commission approved it at the November 2023 meeting. I respectfully request that you approve this lease at your December 4th meeting. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Thank you. Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order number 294. Dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has received a $200 donation from Beverly residents Alice Riley King and Edward King Jr. This gift is intended to benefit the senior center and has no restrictions. Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both city council and mayor approval before any grant, earmarks, donations, or gifts in the city can be extended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the city approve this donation by acting on this matter at your upcoming meeting on December 4th. Thank you. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Please refer that to the Committee on Finance and Property.
Order number 295, dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has received a $1,000 donation from Eric Gagnon, Chief Executive Officer of the Sixth Element, Inc. The donation represents the proceeds from the sale of memorial patches created in honor of former Harbor Master Daniel McPherson. From the sales, the funds will be used to install a memorial plaque and signage honoring Mr. McPherson at the Dan McPherson Harbor Center. Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and Mayor approval before any grant, earmark, donation, or gift to the city can be expended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this donation at your upcoming meeting on December 4th. Thank you. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Please refer that to the Committee on Finance and Property as well.
Order number 296, dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has been awarded a $123,079.14 FY24 911 Department Training Grant from the EOPSS and the OGR. This grant funding will be used by the Beverly Police Department for 911 training courses and overtime cost coverage as well for training meeting space. Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and Mayor approval before any grants, earmarks, donation, or gifts to the city can be expended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this grant by acting on this matter at your upcoming meeting. Thank you. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Please refer that to the Committee on Finance and Property.
Dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has been awarded a $163,964 FY24 911 support and incentive grant from the EOPSS and OGR. This grant funding will be used by the Beverly Police Department to assist public safety dispatch services in providing enhanced 911 service. Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and Mayor approval before any grant, earmark, donation, or gift to the city can be expended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this grant by acting on this matter at your upcoming meeting on December 4th. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Please also refer that to the Committee on Finance and Property.
Order number 298, dear Honorable City Council, I hereby reappoint, subject to your review and recommendation, David Lane of 10 Foster Point, Beverly, to serve on the Beverly Harbor Management Authority, his term to be effective from December 31st, 2023 until December 31st, 2026. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Please refer that to the Committee on Public Services.
Order number 299, dear Honorable City Council, I hereby reappoint, subject to your review and recommendation, Ms. Ellen Flannery, 30 Conant Street, Beverly, to serve on the Planning Board. Her term is to be effective from December 31st, 2023 until December 31st, 2026. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order number 300. Dear Honorable City Council, I hereby reappoint, subject to your review and recommendation, Mr. Mark Anuzzi, 29 Granite Street, Peabody, to serve as constable at the City of Beverly for the express purpose of serving civil process. Attached is an application which has been approved by Police Chief LaLatcher, and the term will be effective until December 18, 2026. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order number 301. Dear Honorable City Council, I hereby appoint, subject to your review and recommendation, Mr. Joseph Crowell, 7 Margaret Avenue, Beverly, to serve on the Beverly Harbor Management Authority, his term to be effective from December 31st, 2023 until December 31st, 2026. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Please refer that to the Committee on Public Services.
Order number 302. Dear Honorable City Council, I hereby appoint, subject to review and recommendation, Ms. Grace Charles, 12 Hale Park Avenue, Beverly, to serve as the Conservation Commission representative on the Open Space and Recreation Committee. Her term is to be effective until August 31st, 2026. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs. Let's go to communications from other city officers and boards, please. And councilors, the first order listed here, Order 303, because of the timing left in the year to do an ordinance change, we're actually going to pick this one up anew on January 2nd. So we won't take action on Order 303 at this time.
Order number 304 from Council Rotundo and Councilor Rand from the Beverly Harbor Management Authority by annual report.
I would entertain a motion to receive that and place it on file.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and thank you, Councilors Rotundo and Rand, for sending that our way.
Order number 305 from the city clerk, 17 renewal applications for Class 1, 2, and 3 motor vehicle dealer licenses for 2024.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order number 306 from the city clerk, 3 renewal licenses, applications for livery and taxi licenses for 2024.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs. I would entertain a motion to accept a late file for Order 309 from our Senior Center Director.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Sorry, okay. That carries 9-0 to accept that. And thank you, councilors. I know we try really hard not to have late files. This one was a bit extenuating. As you'll hear, it's a donation that just came in today for the seniors and is for this week. So,
Order number 309 from Chris Gomez Farewell, from the Beverly Council on Aging, a gift of 46 North Shore music tickets to the Beverly Council on Aging from the Insurance Fraud Bureau.
please refer that to the Committee on Finance and Property. Let's go to communications, applications, and petitions, please.
Order number 307 from PERAC, P-E-R-A-C, appropriations for fiscal year 2025.
I would entertain a motion to receive that and place it on file.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 9-0. We can go to start motions and orders. We have one order under motions and orders, Order 184A, which is available for final passage this evening. It's already had its initial reading and a first vote. This is the Planning Board City Council order on accessory dwelling units and the connected conversation.
Notices hereby given in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, that Beverly City Council will hold a second public hearing on Monday, November 20th at 7:30 in the City Council chambers relative to further revisions to a proposed zoning ordinance amendment affecting various sections, which include, number 1, amendments to Section 300-5, terms defined to include a definition for accessory dwelling unit, both detached and attached, remove definitions for accessory apartment, include an explicit definition for transient lodging, and to clarify the definition of bed and breakfast establishments. 2, adoption of a new Section 300-55, accessory dwelling units, ADUs, replacing existing Section 355, accessory apartments, allowing ADUs in most single-family residential districts, detached and attached ADUs, non-relative members to reside in ADUs, requiring owner occupancy of one of the dwelling units and one off-site parking space per ADU, setting dimensional and design standards, and number 3, additional minor amendments to other sections for the purpose of, among other things, removing redundant or unnecessary language and creating consistency with definitions. And in addition to added on 11/20/23, proposed further amendment to 184A, 300-55C, number 6, dimensional regulations for accessory dwelling units. All accessory dwelling units are subject to the following dimension regulations. A, square footage accessory dwelling unit shall be no greater than 1,000 square feet in gross floor area, or 50% of the principal building's gross floor area, whichever is smaller.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kent. Is there a motion to approve Order 184A? Thank you.
Second?
Thank you. Is there any further discussion, questions, or comments from councilors? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 9-0. And as I said, that is for final passage this evening, so 184A is officially approved this evening by a vote of 9-0. I would entertain a motion to take the agenda slightly out of order here, because I understand Order 277 may be a longer discussion than we have in the next 5 minutes. Thank you.
Second.
That was perfect. All those in favor? Thank you. Let's go to Order 291. This is available for a first vote this evening and will be available for final passage on the 18th.
Order number 291, be obtained by the City Council in the City of Beverly. Proposed amendments to Article 2, Chapter 15, Section 15-11A, Airport Commission. Terms of office by redacting the second sentence reading, members of such commission shall not have an affiliation or an interest directly or indirectly with any operating firm or lessee at the airport and aviation facilities. The full text of Order 291 can be found at the City Clerk's office, 191 Cabot Street, Beverly, MA, Monday, Wednesday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Thursday, 8:30 to 7:30 p.m., and Friday, 8:30 to 1 p.m. Also available online, beverlyma.gov. And this is the first reading, and it was published on November 24th, 2023.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. Is there a motion to approve Order 291 for this first vote?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion at this time? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 9-0. Let's go to Order 281 before we go to our public hearing, Ms. Kent.
Order number 281, be obtained by the City Council of the City of Beverly as follows. Amend Beverly Ordinance, Chapter 15, Article 2, specific multiple member bodies to add a new section, Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, summarized as follows. To establish a 7-member committee to advise city officials and residents on matters concerning bicyclists and pedestrians in the City of Beverly. Committee functions include but not limited to promoting strategic infrastructure planning that facilitates safe and effective use by bicyclists, pedestrians, and other vulnerable road users for transportation, commuting, and recreation. The full text of Order 281 can be found at the City Clerk's office, 191 Cabot Street, Beverly, Monday through Wednesday, 8:30 to 4:30 p.m., Thursday, 8:30 to 7:30 p.m., and Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 1 p.m., also available online, beverlyma.gov. This was in the newspaper on November 24th, and it is the first reading.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. Councilors Bowen and Rotundo, you had submitted this. Is there anything that you'd like to say about it at this point?
I'm all set, thank you.
Yeah, and I think the comments in the cover letter covered sort of where we see this fitting with the existing Beverly Bike Committee, with huge thanks to them for bringing a lot of these ideas forward, and with the existing Parking and Traffic Commission.
Great. Thank you both very much. Is there a motion to approve Order 281 for this first vote?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion from councilors at this time? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So for that first vote, that is 9-0, and that will also be read for final passage on the 18th. That brings us almost to 7:35, which is our first posted public hearing. So before I open that, I'll just take a moment to mention again that members of the public who would like to speak in either of our public hearings, we have one posted for 7:35 and one for 7:45, and we may have to move one back if they're not quite wrapped up in time. But if you would like to speak, please sign up on the sheets in front of the city clerk, and we will take public speakers in the order that they're signed up. So with that, I'll open our posted public hearing on Order 278, which is posted for 7:35.
Order number 278, the City of Beverly ordered that the City Council of the City of Beverly hold a public hearing on Monday, December 4, 2023 at 7:35 p.m. at 191 Cabot Street, 3rd floor, council chambers, live stream on BevCam relative to the allegation of fiscal year 2024 tax levy percentages among the 4 classes of real estate and personal property in consideration of the adoption of open space, residential, and small business exemptions. And this was in the newspaper on November 24th, 2023.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kent. Mr. Francis Golden, our Chief Assessor, is here and already at the podium. Thank you very much, Mr. Golden. So I'll turn the floor over to you to get us started.
Madam President, through you, isn't too loud, right? Francis Golden, Chairman of the Board, Chief Assessor. Rich Scanlon and Nate Kramer are present,
Thank you.
both members of the Board of Assessors. Tonight, first, I'd like to just address that the board has met the total valuations determined through the Department of Revenue's certifications. Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, 4, and 5, residential, open space, commercial, industrial, and personal property are all set. And basically, when we take our total value of the 5 classes and we divide that by our proposed levy, we come to a residential rate of $12.54. The fourth item of the night will be classification to shift, but I'd like to just explain, because a lot of the time the public doesn't understand where this single rate comes from, and it's basically just the total value in the levy, or the proposed levy, so you divide the proposed levy by the total value and you get to the $12.54. Okay, so that's a simple single tax rate for Beverly. One of the options that's before the council that the mayor chose not to exercise, and the Board of Assessors does not recommend, is the residential exemption. Only 14 communities in the Commonwealth have the residential exemption. I'm one of those lucky assessors in Somerville. I had it in Watertown also. Really, the residential exemption only works when you have 2 and 3 family properties, numerous and non-owner occupied, so that you can pass the burden off the residential, okay, onto these non-owner occupied properties and relieve the tax burden from your residents. Okay, so Beverly does not have a high number of 3s and 2s that I would recommend that this would be beneficial to us. The next option I'd like to touch on would be the small commercial exemption. I have some experience with this in Watertown. They thought it was a good idea to look at assisting the mom and pops and the small $1 million and under properties with 10 employees or less. When we looked into it, our percentage of the properties that qualified were non-Beverly residents or non-Watertown residents. So it's something that you can look at. The state provides a very detailed report to the assessors. But again, this is another exemption that I feel like it's classification within the commercial class, and it's only the commercial property, so it's not industrial, it's not personal property, it's just commercial properties. And I don't see the benefit in passing on 10% of that burden within the commercial class for this group, unless we were asked to look at it per property, which would entail some time, as it did in Watertown, and it proved not to be in the best interest of that community at that time. So we don't recommend this, and the mayor has chosen not to recommend it to the council either. Open space, I don't think that's something that the community is short of here in Beverly. We have a lot of open space. We're a community like Somerville. We're doing everything we can to get more open space in Somerville. So it's almost, we're in the inverse position that you're in. We have one property, I think, in open space here in the city. So again, that's, the ASSs recommend not to grant an open space exemption. Getting back to why we're here, and that's to classify, I'd like to touch on that we have a $12.54 residential single rate based on the total value of all the classes divided by a proposed levy. What is going on in Beverly? Well, our residential is appreciating at 5.7%, and our commercial, or our commercial industrial personal property, appreciated at 1.7%. We've shifted at 1.75 for 2 years, and we're recommending that we do it again for a third. The commercial base is not growing, it's very flat. 727 million in value, and roughly the same this year from last year. It was up in the reval the year before. Industrial slightly up from 194 to 209 million, and the personal properties up from 223 million to 249 million. So basically you have a very small increase in your CIP, your commercial industrial personal property, And the value's being driven by your single families, your two families, and your three families, and your condos in the community. We're up about 500 million in those, and that's the lion's share. We're talking mid-80s to where that increase is coming from. So as we've done in the past few years, the excess levy capacity was at $1 million, $1.3 million, and now this year we're proposing $1.4 million to try to control that burden on the residential, because one of the things that I don't think a lot of people understand is that the commercial can only take on 1.75 upon itself. So that shift basically moves the tax dollars from 13 million to 23 million. So the shift of 1.75 shifts $10 million onto the commercial from the residential. If the commercial grows more, the burden can be greater. That isn't happening right now. So basically, the excess levy capacity of 1.4 enables us to not raise that residential rate higher than we really want to at this time. The packet that you received, you can kind of see if you go to the charts, column like this, and you look at what's happening, historically, you have about 10 years there, you can see that we're trying to hold the commercial, industrial, personal property to an equal number with the residential. We're trying not to, with as much effort as we can, to keep the burden off the residential, but at this time, we just can't. There's nothing we can do. The commercial, industrial, personal property is just not growing enough to take more of the burden away. So we have an increase in the residential rate, and the board would like to report that we have a greater commercial base than we do, but unfortunately we don't. So, any questions on that position that we're in?
Thank you very much, Mr. Golden. Counselors, I'll go to questions, and just note that in a couple minutes, we'll just have to pause, open, and then recess the next hearing. But Counselor Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Mr. Golden, for taking the time to be here, and to the other assessors as well. I just want to clarify, I think I'm following this correctly, but specifically on that 1.4 million in excess levy capacity, it's my understanding that that was built up from the previous few years where the tax levy didn't go up the full 2.5%. This proposal would increase the levy 2.5%, but we're not touching at all that excess levy capacity that had been built up from those previous fiscal years, correct?
If we chose to increase the residential rate. So, I mean,
If the
that
shift
is
were not
correct.
at
You
the
are
full
looking
1.75.
yes, that is the max.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Sweeney. Counselors, other questions for Mr. Golden? Counselor Houseman.
Just briefly, my understanding is the shift of 1.75 is really, we're constrained by law. We cannot shift more than that, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Houseman. Counselor St. Hilaire.
Just curious, in your opinion, what's driving the value increase, and is there any impact from development of housing over the last 10 years or so?
Madam President, through you, basically, I came up here in 2006, and today I got here a little early and I looked at some things, and you'd think there would be a lot more single families now than there is. It was about a 250 variance on the plus, on the 101s. The condos have grown actually more in that time period. I think this is an attractive community to live in. I think people want to buy single-family condo, two families and three-family properties in this city, and I think that we'd all like to have some more commercial happening, and I think we're doing the best we can to try to attract more commercial. But currently, right now, it's not a bad thing that your residential properties are appreciating like they are. I always find that Beverly continues to climb when everybody else begins to stabilize closer to Boston. It's just kind of what happens.
Just a follow-up if I could.
Yes, I'll come right back to you, Counselor St. Hilaire. Let me just take care of this little bit of housekeeping, where we will officially open our 7:45 public hearing on Order 280. Ms. Kent.
Order number 280, order that the City Council of the City of Beverly hold a public hearing on Monday, December 4th, 2023 at 7:45 PM, 191 Cabot Street, 3rd floor, Council Chambers, Beverly, Mass., relative to a recommendation for out-of-cycle application request for additional CPA funds for Anchor Point Phase 2, 106 Sawyer Road, Harbor Light Community Partners, and this was in the newspaper November 24th.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. I would entertain a motion to recess this public hearing until 7:55.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 9-0. So we'll recess the public hearing on Order 280 to 7:55, return to the public hearing on Order 278. And Counselor St. Hilaire, back over to you.
Yes, I just wanted to say I appreciate that response. And I guess as a further question, considering we've been at the max, if we accept this for 3 years now in a row, what happens if that continues? What is the impact of that over time?
Madam President, through you, I feel that we'll hold this level of appreciation the best we can. What's to come, it's calendar year 23 looks strong again in the same uses.
So you're not concerned there'd be dramatic changes?
No, it's never a bad thing that people are paying more money to own property in your community. And I think the Honorable Council's done everything it can to try to combat and stabilize what's happening. And with the assessor's recommendation, I think we're doing the best we can right now to provide the best stability we can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Feldman.
Yes, thank you. This is going to seem like a basic question, very, very basic level, mainly because in explaining things to constituents, sometimes I just want to make sure I'm abundantly clear that what we're looking at here is single-family homes and condo and two-family homes. Taxes will be increasing, but it's based on the assessed value of the home increasing as well, not the city raising the taxes beyond 2.5%. And in addition to that, if I'm reading this chart correctly, the largest increase, percentage increase in value would be condos. So the greatest percentage increase in taxes would be on condos. Is that correct?
Madam President, through you, it would really depend on the value of your condo. One-bedroom condos don't appreciate like 2- and 3-bedroom condos do. I think it would depend on your neighborhood, where you are in the city. Also, depending on different neighborhoods appreciated different ways. The Department of Revenue basically holds us to assessment sales ratios within each neighborhood. Ryleside being our biggest, your ocean front views being our smallest, but we have to meet criteria. And it's very strict. But yes, I feel that you should expect to pay the taxes for the utility of your property where you may be in the city, depending on that value. It's just, there's no way around it. The condos are growing faster than any other use, but they are not the highest valued residential properties in the community either.
Oh, I do understand. Thank you. I do understand that part of it. It was more I'm looking at the chart where it says the average condo value and the percentage increase from FY23 versus FY24 is 8.3% of an increase versus the other classification. So
they may have the greatest appreciation within that use, but at the same time, like our average single family went from 683 to 720. So it's, I feel that the 101s, your single-family homes, are driving the city's levy, not the condos.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam President. And Mr. Golden, just while you're here, to the point where it's certainly a positive that the city is such an attractive place to live, and that's a big reason of why the price of housing has gone up. Now that we maxed the shift, and will likely hold that in future fiscal years, there probably will be a notable increase, at least for the foreseeable future, in residential tax bills, even with that 2.5% because of how the values work and the switch between commercial and residential. Just one thing I want to ask you. I hear from folks frequently who are on fixed incomes that, it's great. For most people, they can afford to pay the increasing property taxes. There are a lot of folks that struggle with that. I know we have a senior work-off program and there's the circuit breaker program. Could you maybe just highlight a few of the exemptions or abatements that we offer as a city for folks in those situations that are struggling to keep up with these increasing property tax bills?
Madam President, through you, I feel that the first thing every taxpayer should do if they have a problem with their value is file an abatement and let us do a complete inspection. Mm-hmm. I think that's the starting. We get into the financials, which is private, through that relationship with the taxpayer, and what they may or may not qualify for will be determined at that time once we meet them. But I think that you want to make sure your grades are right. If you have pink or light green tile in your bathrooms, and you might want to call the assessor. Like if nothing's happened from the 50s and the 60s, I see this all the time, and some of them are scared of the assessors. They think the assessors are going to raise their tax bills because you never let the assessor in. That's not true. You want to let the assessor in and look at your property and let us do our job, and sometimes that clears up a lot of misconceptions on your value. And it's, you know exactly where you stand after the assessor leaves, because he's going to tell you the 3 most comparable properties within your neighborhood. Mass appraisal may be 50 or 60 sales, but we're going to look at the 3 that are in your immediate area. And sometimes that's hard to do, sometimes it's easy, but with the size of our neighborhoods, it can be easy sometimes to just clear up a value that's high.
Thank you, Mr. Golden. And then, so once that process is completed, on the exemption side, the 2 that I know of are the senior work-off program and then the circuit breaker property tax exemption. Are there any others that, in talking with these residents, I should be aware of and try to direct them to?
They may qualify for the deferral.
Okay.
It really depends on the situation. Yeah, I mean, the widows, the exemptions, different things exist, but you've got to really be in a hard place to qualify for those, in my opinion. That's why I'd like to say it's private, and I don't want anyone to be hesitant on looking into those, but we try to keep that between us and the taxpayer. But yes, it's all there and it's available, and I have your experience, you have a feel. You know when you need to bring up certain things with the taxpayer, once you get intimate with the property and the person and you ask the questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Goldman.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselors, any other questions at this time? I would like to invite Mr. Perry to come up. While you're coming up, Mr. Perry, I will just quickly reopen our recessed public hearing on Order 280 and ask for a motion to recess that to 8 p.m.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So we'll pick that back up at 8 p.m. and return to our hearing on Order 278. Mr. Perry, thank you. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add to the conversation.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, members of the council. I'll be brief. I wrote to you last week with a quick summary of some information for your consideration review. The 2 issues, you really, as councilors, don't really have a lot to do here tonight. It's limited on the laws of Proposition 2. One is to do the shift, which both the mayor and the assessors have recommended at 175. I also recommend that to you as well. The second vote you'll be taking tonight is not to adopt an open spaces exemption. You have historically done that in years gone by, so I would recommend that both motions be passed tonight. Just a quick comment about some of the questions, which I think were excellent tonight. When Prop 2.5, and I made a living out of Prop 2.5, but back in 81 it was passed, 1981, they tried to figure out what would happen, what's going to happen in the future. What we're seeing, as you all know, as everyone knows, certainly the greater Boston area, if not throughout the country, the property, residential values are just going up and up and up, where, as Mr. Golden indicated, things are remaining flat. So it gets difficult when you see a shift. So yeah, we're going to see a larger average increase in the residential bills compared to commercial industrial, and the laws of Proposition 2.5 really kind of limit your ability to give relief there, because all you can do is give the shift to 175. So it's important that the taxpayers be aware of that. The other thing I share with you, it's important, I think we passed this tonight. This is a process, one of the last processes of passing the tax rate, as you all know, but just so the public is aware of it, in order, we have to get a tax rate done in order to send out the third and fourth quarter tax bills. We don't get this done, we can't send out tax bills, we don't have money, we have a lot of trouble. So it's something we really need to get done tonight to allow Mr. Ailes and the assessors to get the tax rate recap into the Department of Revenue. And finally, I just add, just kind of a sidebar note for, if I may, Madam President. As you know, we had a little change in the leadership of the assessors this year. I had the opportunity to talk to some of my former colleagues at the Department of Revenue, and I've been informed that the assessors here did a really good job. They're on top of everything. They answered all the questions. They met the standards that the Department of Revenue has initiated over the many years. And I'm also pleased to report we have a new assessor, Mr. Nate Kramer, who's with us. He also is another local services alumni with myself and Mr. Ailes, so you're getting saturated with those DLS guys. But bottom line, too, they did a good job, and it's my recommendation you pass these two motions tonight, and I'm more than happy if there are any questions to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Councilors, any questions? Councilor Bowen.
Thank you. I just had kind of a question about the context that this fits into, understand, you know, the specific decision in front of us and support these recommendations, given the, you know, pain points that people are feeling with some of those increases continuing as residential properties take on a larger share of our overall property tax levy. If you can just sort of comment where we are now mid-year in this fiscal year on our revenue and expenditure tracking. I know, Mr. Perry, you provide those reports to us once a quarter, but sort of the bigger context is the general pie that we're trying to fill between residential property taxes and commercial, industrial, personal property. So just how we're feeling about that, if we're on track, that we're not sort of leaving resources on the table and we're not asking for resources from taxpayers that we're not.
No, good question, Councilor. First off, yes, we are on track. As the assessors indicated, we're still only going up 2.5% on the levy, so it's still a kind of a finite amount there, and we're on track. Unfortunately, a little bit more will be coming from residential in general, and I think Mr. Golden's correct. I would agree with his assessment. You're probably going to see the same thing next year. The 2023 values are doing the same things they did in 2022, and you're probably going to have the same discussion next year as well. But we are on track. The first quarter expenditure side looked pretty good to me. As you know, I'll do second quarter around the first week of January. I have not seen anything that's out of whack right now, so I'm comfortable with that. Bottom line to it is I'm comfortable where we are with the budget. I think we're on track. And again, I would recommend we adopt these two proposals as recommended by the assessors.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you, Mr. Perry. Any other questions for Mr. Perry? Are there any members of the public who wish to speak in the public hearing on Order 278? Seeing none, I'll close that public hearing and refer that back to the Committee on Finance and Property, and we'll take further action on that this evening. Thank you again, Mr. Golden, for being here and for answering our questions and presenting. Thanks to our entire Board of Assessors for being here and for your work as well, and we'll take further action this evening. With that, that brings us back to 8 o'clock, and I am going to recuse myself from the 8 o'clock public hearing. So I'll invite Vice President Rotundo, if you would not mind coming back, opening this public hearing and taking things from there. Thank you.
I am opening up public hearing, order number 280. It was to do with the CPC out of cycle for, thank you. Out of cycle funding recommendation request for additional CPA funding for Anchor Point Phase 2, -106 Sawyer Road, Harbor Lake Community Partners. There is a sign-up sheet up here for anyone in the audience who would like to sign up to be heard. I will open questions and comments to councilors. So should I ask first and then go around?
That's okay.
Councilors? Brendan? Councilor Sweeney, sorry.
Mr. Vice President, I don't know if you wanted to
Recognize
go
Ms. Nguyen.
first, but
Ms. Nguyen, would you like to say a few words on this?
Sure, thank you, I will. I just wanted to first say that Chairperson Beckwith regrets that he had an unexpected emergency taking him out of town. He's not able to be here tonight. It was last minute. I don't think any other CPC members, except for former members, were able to attend. So I'm speaking on behalf of them and just here to present their request. That was considered at a special meeting on November 1st of the Community Preservation Committee for an out-of-cycle application for Phase 2 of Anchor Point for an additional $450,000 in funding to the project. They asked me to note that the vote was unanimous and that the CPC enthusiastically supports this as one of the most important projects in the city. They also, there's a couple of the comments from the meeting where the public hearing they recently held for round 11, affordable housing, was the most mentioned request for funding to be allocated for CPC projects. And then other comments, but generally that each member of the committee really strongly supported this project, even though it was an unusual request.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. Councilor Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Ms. Nguyen, I have one question for you generally. There may not be much to add, but I noticed in the letter that was submitted to the council, the reasons for why this request is being brought forward were generally cited as rising interest rates and then construction costs that have impacted the total project cost since when the original $400,000 was allocated. Are there any other factors that drove this request aside from just those two simple factors?
I would say Andrew Leonard is here on behalf of Harbor Light as well. If you want to defer to him, I would say no, it's largely this is not uncommon in what we've seen in other projects, is that the cost of construction and interest rates have just driven up the cost of doing these projects altogether. The need, I believe, was over $6 million. And as we've explained before, I think when we've awarded money to these projects, particularly from the CPC and the CPA account, we are showing our city commitment to kind of help meet the need, but not expected to kind of make that big gap, and hoping that the state then will put its funds together. There's other additional funds that are being allocated to the project as well to help meet that gap. That was unexpected and has been happening across the state and the nation. We're not the only ones who are seeing this.
Okay, thank you. And then I do have another question, a two-part question. Probably the first part could be answered best by Mr. Ailes, and then I'll ask the second part to you, Ms. Nguyen. But just to make sure I understand, so Mr. Ailes, I appreciate you providing me with the updated balances of the various CPC funds. One thing I notice is that the proposal as it's presented, which would be a split, about 250 coming from the housing fund and the rest coming from the unrestricted fund, would utilize the majority of what was left, about 250 of the 270 in the housing fund. So my question, I guess, is first about timing. Is that not going to be an issue because the revenues that come in from the local assessment and the state haven't yet been reflected in this fund? And if that's not the case, I guess then that would be my question for you, Ms. Nguyen, about are there any other competing priorities on the housing front that something would need to be bumped further down the list because of this request?
Excellent question. The balances that were provided actually reflect the FY '24 anticipated revenues as passed by the budget request by the CPC. So this request would further bring those balances down further. But we are halfway through the fiscal year. I do understand they probably have their next round, which typically late spring, mid-spring, comes before you again. But that'll all have to be taken into account before they make their next round of recommendations.
And those recommendations would come out of the next fiscal year's available funding at that point?
No. As I stand here today, before this vote, what is available is a total of $2.3 million. A significant portion of that represents the anticipated revenues, both from the state and the surcharge on the property taxes for fiscal '24. That is coupled with the previous fund balance at the end of last fiscal year, and that is the 2.3 that's available from now until June 30th.
Okay, and that's helpful, and I know there's a significant unrestricted fund balance, so it may not be an issue of the committee being too terribly concerned that this project would then displace other planned projects. Can you essentially confirm that for me, Ms. Nguyen?
Yes, so the committee essentially has a choice. They can take from the restricted fund or the unrestricted fund. So in this case, they chose to, not entirely deplete, but put the balance of, or use the balance of the housing fund and leave a little bit in there, but then take the rest from the unrestricted. They could have taken it all from the unrestricted, and they have done that with some of these larger projects in the past as well. And I don't know that there was a specific conversation about that. That's just how the vote went down. Let's use some of it from the housing fund. It really doesn't matter. It all comes from the same place in that sense. There are 5 projects currently under review in round, or that had approved eligibility coming from round 11. The applications are due in January. It's a relatively small amount this year.
Okay.
And a small number of projects. A couple of them are housing related, but really pretty small dollars, and they could just pull those from the unrestricted fund. There's not a concern at all that we're going to need to tap the balance at all, and we would use this moment to be like, we welcome more CPC applications in the future because the last 2 years have been on the lower side. So.
Okay, that answers my questions. Thank you, Ms. Nguyen and Mr. Ailes.
That's it from me, Mr. Vice President. Any other councilors have a question? Councilor Bowen?
Thank you. I'm not exactly sure who this is a question for, but it may be a question for Ms. Nguyen or Mr. Leonard. But I'm curious about the overall filling of the budget gap, and there was an outline in one of the documents about the different pieces coming together. I was particularly interested in the additional local funds and what the status and sources of those are beyond the CPC. It's Beverly AHT and Beverly Home.
Could you just state your name for the record, please?
Sure. So my name is Andrew Leonard. I'm a senior project manager with Arborlight Homes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so basically, like Darlene referenced, we had a budget gap of about $6 million we had to fill, so we knocked on every door to get there, right? And that include going to the state, and include, taking money out of our own pockets in the deal, and trimming down what we could in the budget, without harming the quality of the building. On the local and regional side, beyond the CPC funds, there was a request for additional Beverly Home money that was committed, and we do anticipate at some point coming back and requesting additional years of home potentially. So about 217,000, so 2 fiscal year applications of Beverly Home funds have been allocated to this. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund voted to approve $50,000 in funding there. And then we've submitted applications to the North Shore Home Consortium for 2 different sources there, for their regular home funds and the home ARPA funds, which are connected to
kind of COVID relief source can be used for housing. And those are still, we should know about those soon. But I will say, you know, the CPC funds, along with the Affordable Housing Trust funds, did leverage about 5 to 1 in the state funds. The state awarded an additional well over $2 million to help us close this gap.
Anyone else? Council Hausman?
Yes, just to follow up on those comments, I didn't try to jot down the numbers, but it sounds like between the $6 million gap and all of those different funding sources, excuse me, that you've asked for, even if you receive all of them, it sounds like you're still going to have a substantial gap remaining. And what's the plan? How would Harbor Light address that gap?
So essentially, it's kind of, think of it like a third. You know, the local and regional piece is about a third of that gap because the home consortium is quite large. A third is the value engineering piece where we, you know, see what we can remove out of the scope and where we can kind of push and, you know, work with the contractors to bring the numbers down. And then the third is the kind of the state piece that they put in. So a lot of that's in place now. The piece that's remains outstanding has to do with the home consortium. So we would move towards finishing that only with a fair, the sense that we have a strong commitment from the North Shore Home Consortium. So we feel like we're in a place where we've closed the gap. We've identified sources, and whatever small gap remains, we would do at our own risk, basically putting in Harbor Light's funds.
Okay. And
project-specific funds.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Vice President. So of the $6 million, roughly 1/3 represents, as you've put it, value engineering, sort of trimming aspects of the project, architecture, engineering, and so forth plans. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. All right. Thank you. No more questions.
Thank you. Are there any other councilors? Councilor Bowman?
Thank you. I realized I had one more question on the timing. So I know at times it's necessary to put in an out-of-cycle request in order to meet a deadline to secure other funding or to meet a construction deadline. And just wanted to know, in this case, what's driving the timing rather than submitting an application for the next round?
Sure. So, you know, on the missional side of things, you know, we've talked about already tonight about the need for affordable housing in the city. And we, you know, in our first phase, we had over 600 families apply for 38 units, right? So we know there's a really key missional need to keep moving that forward. There's a financial side of this too, right? Where we don't want to end up in a cycle where we're kind of, you know, we've got a gap, we work really hard to close it, we get those construction numbers updated, there's a gap again. Interest rates have, you know, they've settled a little bit, but, you know, we don't want to take chances there. So we're really pushing hard to even close it by the end of this year and to start construction at the start of the year. And it's really because, you know, construction rates and interest rates, you know, are settling, but I don't think anyone really expects them to go down where it's going to be prudent for us to wait. So it's really that case where we've worked really hard to close this gap and we don't want to wait and then find ourselves kind of back at square one and having to start over again.
I don't know, just to add, as you might remember, the CPC round, the funding won't be awarded largely until May or June. So that's really the kicker, getting in the out of cycle and kind of moving that along more quickly.
Thank you. Any other councilors? Is there anyone else in the audience that may want to sign up for the sheet before we pull it off? And I close this public hearing. Refer it back to legal affairs. Can someone call Madam President for me? Thank you, Mr. Perry. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Vice President Rotundo, for running that public hearing for us. And so we will before we break for committee, let's go back to motions and orders. We had Order 277 still to take up, and this is also available for first vote only this evening. Ms. Kent.
Order number 277, an order amending an ordinance entitled Chapter 270, Vehicle and Traffic. Be it obtained of the City Council of the City of Beverly as follows. Amend Section 270-41, parking prohibited at all time to create parking prohibited at all time zones from Lothrop Street to the water on the north side of Abbott Street, Central Street, Ocean Street, and Wilson Avenue, both sides of Atlantic Avenue, and the south side of Abbott Street, beginning at a point 130 feet from Lothrop. Amend Section 270-42, parking prohibited during certain months to remove seasonal parking restrictions on Atlantic Avenue and Ocean Street. Amend Section 270-43, parking prohibited during certain hours to create parking prohibited from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. zones from Lothrop to the water on the south side of Abbott Street for 130 feet, Central Street, Ocean Street, and Wilson Avenue. Amend Section 270-43, parking prohibited during certain hours in Section 270-45, 15-minute parking to remove parking prohibited on Abbott and Ocean Street that are unnecessary, otherwise non-existent. The full text of Order 277 can be read at the City Clerk's Office, Beverly City Hall, 191 Cabot Street, Beverly, Monday through Wednesday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Thursday, 8:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., and Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. or on the website, beverlyma.gov. And this was in the newspaper November 24th, 2023. And this is the first reading.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kent. I see our Assistant State Solicitor Jesse Dole is at the podium. Mr. Dole.
Good evening. We, and I can provide some further explanation, but at this time, we would be asking that the amendments in sections 270-41 and 270-43 in regards to Central and Wilson actually be removed from the proposed amendments to these ordinances at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dole.
Thank you.
So in order to accomplish that, are you requesting an amendment from a counselor on the floor to remove those, or are you just withdrawing those?
Either way that you would like to approach, Council President. I wasn't sure if this was going to be referred to Legal Affairs prior to a vote tonight, or whether it would just be a vote would be taken on the floor before, without referring it to Legal Affairs.
I think it already came back out of Legal Affairs. Yes. So
It was in legal affairs, but it was never, yeah, this is the first.
Counselor Rand.
I would make a motion to amend Order 277 to omit reference and change to Central and Wilson Ave.
So it would be the proposed amendments to section 270-41 and 270-43. The request would be to remove the proposed amendments in regards to Central and Wilson Streets.
Specifically sections 270-41 and 270-43.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So Order 277 now with only sections 42 and 45.
No, there are other proposed amendments to 41 and 43 to other streets, not just
Sorry.
Central and
All
Wilson.
right, only those specific to Central and Wilson. Before we can have further discussion, councilors, is there a motion to approve as now amended, Order 277?
So moved.
Second.
Is there further discussion, comments, or questions from the council? Are there? Councilor Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll just make a quick comment, because I worked pretty closely with the residents on this. There was a lot of back and forth discussion with the impacted residents to get to this point. I know that it's tough to find a solution that makes everybody happy, but it seemed like this addressed the majority of the issues along this neighborhood. So there was pretty ample resident feedback to get to this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Sweeney.
And I will at least add, Council President, if I could, the request to remove the amendments as to Central and Wilson are just to allow some further engagement with the residents, specifically on those two streets. I know that there's been some discussion between the mayor's office and some of the residents on those streets that at least at this time, from as far as I understand, that those discussions will continue. And there may or may not be some further amendments proposed in the future as to those two streets.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dole. Councilor Bowen.
Thank you. So just wanted to clarify the big picture of what this set of amendments would accomplish. And I believe from my reading on the additional amendments that it does exactly, as Councilor Sweeney was saying, address specific questions and concerns and consistency raised by neighbors, that essentially all of the streets that go from Lothrop Street to the ocean and sort of dead end into public ways would have consistent treatment of parking, that if these were to all pass, would not be seasonal, it would be year-round, that parking would be allowed just on the southern side of the street, so as you pull in facing the ocean, not allowed on the northern side of the street, and prohibited overnight with consistent timing. Is that where we would land if all of these passed?
I'll describe it in my way, and I think we're both talking about the same thing. As to Ocean and Abbott, what I'd refer to as the extensions from Lothrop to the water, to add some uniformity there, parking would be prohibited on the north side of those two streets, and then overnight parking would be prohibited on the south side of those streets. That would be 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. As to both sides of Atlantic, if you're familiar, that's sort of a gravel, what appears to be a gravel driveway, but is a public way. Parking would be prohibited at all times on both north and south sides of those streets. That extension, so to speak.
So given that, I am supportive of that. I also was supportive of the idea of continuing that consistency all the way down towards Independence Park. So want to be respectful of abutters and neighbors who use those access points as well, but sort of general principle would like to see that consistency extend all the way down to the extent we can do it. So understand that that's what the adjustment tonight was, to sort of leave things as they are on Central and Wilson, sort of the two sides of Independence Park access, but would love to revisit those at the appropriate time with more input from those neighbors.
And at least my understanding is what I've been told is that there has been and still ongoing communication between the mayor's office and certain residents on both of those extensions that are just, my understanding is just a little premature to try to make proposed amendments as to those two areas right now.
Thank you, Councilor. Other comments from councilors or questions?
And I apologize. I need to point it out. I'm not going to say I misspoke, but I left out. There is a portion of the end of Abbott. If you see the amendment as to the south side of Abbott, there's a small portion of the terminus of Abbott, the water end of it, that the overnight parking prohibited portion only extends about 130 feet down the south side of Abbott. It's drafted that way based on a request that we received of the resident at the end of Abbott that otherwise would not be able to get in and out of their driveway, but for prohibiting that last little stretch of Abbott to allow them back in and out. So that is the only deviation from the sort of trying to normalize all of these extensions. So there was a purpose why it's the overnight prohibition is only for the first 130 feet, and then it's at all times the last, I think it's about 15, 20 feet max. That was something that engineering, Lisa Chandler, did go out and take that measurement. So that wasn't something that I came up with on my own.
Thank you, Mr. Dole. Other conversation, questions, or discussions from councilors at this time? A reminder, this is only a first vote, not for final passage this evening. Okay. Mr. Dole, would it be possible for the clerk's office to receive a clean copy of the changes that we just made, so that when, if members of the public come to view it in the clerk's office,
Yes,
she'll have
absolutely.
it? Thank you very much. So there is a motion and a second on the floor on Order 277 as amended by Councilor Rand's motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 9-0, but that will be for final passage at our next meeting on December 18th. I would entertain a motion to take a break for some committee work.
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. All right, let's have legal affairs stay here, finance and property in the committee room, public services on the bench, please. And just a reminder, as always, this is a break for committee work. If we have longer, more substantive material, we'll need to schedule those as standalone meetings. Thank you, everybody.
Call to order the Legal Affairs Committee meeting, please. Thank you. We are going to take up order number 280 first, and this was the Community Preservation Committee out-of-cycle funding recommendation. Request for CPA funding for Anchor Point Phase 2, on Sawyer Road, and with Harbor Light Community Partners. Questions or comments from committee members? Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you. I do have one question. I know the budget went over, whoever, either from Harbor Light, whoever. Is there a contingency fee built into your project itself that would have accounted for some of these overruns? That would have required?
If you don't mind, you can go to the podium again, please. Thank you.
So we build in contingency to every project. but it's not for funding shortfalls or construction cost increases before closing. It's for things that come up during the course of closing. So, we've got 10% contingency in this budget for the project. And I know a good chunk of that's going to be used because that portion of the site at on Sawyer Road there, it's all rock, right? So when we bid it out as if it's kind of digging up the dirt, but really we're going to have to hammer a bunch of that out, right? That whole, like when the solar panels down there had to go in, that all had to get hammered out. When you put phase 1 in, a lot of this had to get hammered out. So it's for things like that, design conflicts that get picked up in the course of construction. But it's not a financing contingency in that sense.
Counselor Teno.
So the contingency isn't for construction overruns then? It's only for financing? Is that what I'm understanding?
No, so it's the opposite.
Right, so I guess the question then is, this additional funding that you're looking for from all parties is really to do with the gap in the funding piece, not so much the contingency of the cost overruns of construction.
Right, exactly. So it's the initial pricing that or not the initial, because we've gotten a few rounds of pricing back, but the pre-closing contract amount. So it's, what will the knowns cost us? And then we have our contingency in the budget for the unknowns that pop up in the course of the in construction.
Just one other question.
Sure.
Not necessarily relevant, but just more of a curiosity. Do you know the number exactly of how many, with the MOU that was created with the 3 communities that would be residing there in the Anchor Point 1, do you know what the percentage was of how many of the families were local? And I mean, it was what, Peabody, excuse me? Are you asking about local preference? The MOU that was to do with the affordable housing of residentials that were in that MOU, the 3 communities. Do you know what the percentage was?
Someone in my office was talking to me about this today, the lottery, and it was 80%, but I'm not sure if that was eligible households in the lottery or if that is, because I think that the number of households living there, I don't think it's quite 80%. I don't have the exact number.
Okay, no worries. Like I said, it was asked
we can
of me.
easily get it.
Yep, okay, it was asked of me. I just want to get it. Okay.
We had a very strong local participation in the lottery.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Sweeney, any questions?
I do not have any additional questions, no.
Okay. I would accept a motion to recommend the council approve the request.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Thank you. Okay, order number 293 is the lease agreement between the City of Beverly and the Beverly Airport Commission for 0 LP Henderson Road. And I just wanted to make a comment before Mr. Perry went to join the Financial Committee, Finance and Property Committee. He did remind me that he is in support of this arrangement and actually has been advocating for this for some time. Are there questions or comments from committee members? Councilor Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one clarifying question. It may be best answered by Mr. Perry, but Mr. Hannafin, if you have the answer, just to make sure that I'm understanding this arrangement. It seems like, so while the dollar amount is set, $48,000, that the city owes the airport for use of this parcel, the understanding of this agreement is that the city provides in excess of that amount in support for payroll and human resources and some of these other administrative services, and that amount is at least significantly in excess, that if for some reason the city in future years were to cut back on those administrative services, there would be some sort of backlog of savings where we wouldn't expect really the city to start cutting checks in any amount to cover that $48,000 as part of this arrangement. Maybe that's too much of a hypothetical and too long-term, but
I'll defer to Ms. Williams on that.
The letter explains it as best as it can. The reality is right now,
the city uses the general fund to pay for the cost of running the airport, because the airport currently is not self-sufficient. So we fully anticipate in the reasonable future, foreseeable future, that the city will not be actually transferring funds, and that we can offset the amount of the cost that we pay every year. There may be a point in the future where, due to additional development at the airport or the jet fuel excise tax, that the city will not have to subsidize the airport to the extent it does. And if it got to that point where it's zeroed out, then the city may very well end up having, it's all, you know, it's transferring funds. It's like we're really entering into a lease with ourselves, but the FAA requires us to document it. So it's about the airport becoming self-sustaining and us not having to use the general fund to support operations at the airport. How that might happen is, you know, there may be more than one scenario.
Okay, thank you. And I think, to maybe simplify it, just to make sure, right now, there's no lease, but the city's providing these administrative services anyways.
So there is a lease. This is the lease.
Well, currently, we're not, and maybe this is what I need to be corrected on. Are we being charged in any way right now by the airport for use of this
So
parcel?
currently, by agreement, the city DPS has been using that property. There's no, money has not been exchanging hands. The agreement all along, which we have now reduced to writing, was going to be that through a combination of investment in the carpentry shop and the city's contributions to the operations of the airport, that would offset any rent that would be owed and satisfy the FAA's requirement that we, meaning the city as the sponsor, compensate the airport commission, which is still part of the city, for use of airport property for non-aviation purposes.
Okay, thank you. That was what I assumed was the case, but just wanted
And
to
so
make sure I knew.
this is now documenting that
Yeah.
going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? Any other questions from council members, committee members? Okay, I would accept a motion to recommend the council approve the lease.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Thank you, Solicitor Williams, for your help with that. Order number, actually, let me just. Order number 305. And this is a packet of 17 renewal applications for Class 1, 2, and 3 motor vehicle dealer licenses for 2024. Are there questions from committee members, any interest or need to separate out the applications, or we comfortable moving forward?
I was comfortable with it. I don't know if council would do
As
it.
a packet? Okay. I would accept a motion to recommend the council approve, or recommend the license be granted, the licenses be granted.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 3-0. Order number 306, and this is a packet of 3 renewal applications for livery and taxi licenses for 2024. Questions from committee members?
Nope, no questions.
Okay. I would accept a motion to recommend that the licenses be granted.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 3-0. And I believe that is all we have on our agenda. Mr. DeFranza, just to catch you up, we already, which you may have just heard, we already voted your grant application out of this committee, and it will go out to the full council, so, for a vote this evening. I believe that's it. Motion to adjourn Legal Affairs Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Council back to order for reports from committees. Ms. Kent, please.
Order number 278, Committee on Finance and Property, to whom refer the matter regarding relative to the allegation of fiscal year 2024 tax levy percentage among the four classes of real and personal property in consideration of the adoption of open space, residential, and small business exemptions, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend to not accept open space exemption.
Thank you. So councilors, for those who are not in finance and property, there are two votes associated with this order on which we had a public hearing this evening, Order 278. The first, as recommended by finance and property, is the one that Ms. Kent just read, to vote to not accept an open space exemption. Are there questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the recommendation to not accept an open space exemption. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That portion carries 9-0. Ms. Kent.
And to adopt residential factor 89.5790.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments on this one? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And that carries 9-0 to set that residential factor at 89.5790.
Order number 294, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom refer the matter regarding a $200 donation from Beverly residents Alice, Therese, Riley King, and Edward King Jr. to benefit the senior center, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments on this one? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. That carries 9-0, and thanks to Alice and Edward for that generous donation.
Order number 295, the Committee on Finance and Property, whom refer the matter regarding a $1,000 donation from Eric Gagnon, Chief Executive Officer of 6 Element, Inc., to be used to install a memorial plaque and signage honoring Mr. McPherson at the Dan McPherson Harbor Center. Have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 9-0, and thank you also to Mr. Gagnon for that donation.
Order number 296, Committee on Finance and Property, to whom refer the matter regarding a $123,079.14 FY24-911 Department Training Grant from the EOPSS and OGR to be used by the Beverly Police Department for 911 training courses and overtime cost coverage, as well as for training meeting space. Have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 9-0.
Order number 297, the Committee on Finance and Property, whom refer the matter regarding a $163,964 FY24 911 support and incentive grant from EOPSS and OGR to be used by the Beverly Police Department to assist public safety dispatch services in providing enhanced 911 service. Have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments on this one? Councilor Rand.
I just wanted to know if we have an example of what assisting the public safety dispatch is.
It's a good question.
I don't know.
Ms. Barrett, is that something you're able to comment on?
That's what Chief will answer.
Okay. I'll follow up with the chief. I mean, I support more funding. I just wanted some clarity around what that funding is actually going towards.
Thank you very much, Councilor Rand.
Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Barrett, for being here as well. Other questions or comments on this one? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 9-0.
Order number 309, the Committee on Finance and Property, who referred the matter regarding a gift of 47 tickets for a North Shore Music Theater production from the insurance.
46 tickets.
What did I say?
47.
Oh, 46, sorry. 46 tickets. I was donating.
I just don't want to give away an extra ticket by mistake and then have someone be sad.
And then it's from the Insurance Fraud Bureau, so that wouldn't be good. Have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve these 46 tickets.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That carries
Madam
9.
President, I just want to thank the Insurance Fraud Bureau for this lovely gift for the seniors.
Yes, it is a nice opportunity, and hope that the seniors will enjoy the show.
Order number 292, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom refer the matter regarding a loan authorization request of $690,000 to facilitate improvements to Hallcroft Park, have set a public hearing on December 18th at 8 p.m.
Questions or comments? I would entertain a motion to approve that recommendation to set that public hearing at our next regular meeting, December 18th, 8 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 9-0. So we'll take up that loan authorization request at our next regular meeting at 8 p.m. Counselor Crowley, I know you're excited for this one to be coming forward. That's your ward.
Order number 273, the Committee on Public Services, to whom refer the matter regarding an appointment for Julia Wark to serve on the Beverly Waste Reduction Committee, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this appointment.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 9-0.
Order number 274, the Committee on Public Services, to whom refer the matter regarding a reappointment for Mark Casey and Kevin Hoban to serve on the Park and Recreation Commission, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve these reappointments.
Questions or comments on this one? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Thank you. That carries 9-0.
Order number 275, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom refer the matter regarding a reappointment for Wayne Miller to serve on the Planning Board, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve the appointment for Wayne Miller.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
That carries 9-0 as well. Thank you.
Order number 293, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom refer the matter regarding a lease agreement for the City of Beverly and Beverly Airport Commission for 0 LP Henderson Road, a portion of parcel ID 90-4, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 9-0.
Order number 305, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom refer the matter regarding 17 renewal applications for Class 1, 2, and 3 motor vehicle dealer licenses for 2024, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the licenses be granted.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 9-0.
Order number 306, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom refer the matter regarding 3 renewal applications for livery and taxi licenses for 2024, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the license be granted.
Questions or comments on this one? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
You and I, Councilor.
And I, yeah.
Okay, that carries 9-0, and I think, does that bring us to 280? Yep. Councilor
That's what I was
Rotundo,
waiting
yes, I'm gonna recuse myself
Ready.
from the vote on 280 and have Vice President Rotundo. Yes.
She already pulled it out.
Thank you. Vice President Rotundo?
Ready? Order number 280, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom refer the matter regarding Community Preservation Committee out-of-cycle funding recommendation request for additional CPA funding for Anchor Point Phase 2, 106 Sawyer Road, Harbor Light Community Partners, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this request.
Any questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Perry.
Very professional.
Well, thank you, Madam President.
Getting this thing.
That was the end of reports from committees.
Here's my red sheet, just as I
All
have
right.
my cheat sheet.
Thank you again to Vice President Rotundo for taking the chair on everything related to Order 280 this evening, both the public hearing and the vote. Are there announcements or reminders that councilors have for members of the public or for one another? Councilor Rand.
Yes, this week on Thursday at 5 p.m., the National Grid Advisory Committee will be meeting in the Barnett Gallery at the main branch of the Public Library.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rand. Other announcements from the council? All right. Well, our next regular meeting, as we heard earlier this evening, will be December 18th. We will have one public hearing, which we just set at 8 p.m. It also will be the last meeting for Councillor Rand in her seat as Ward 2 councillor. So Councillor Rand will have a chance to say goodbye to you in a more fitting way then, but all those who might want to come and celebrate and thank Councillor Rand, that'll be a meeting where you can come and do that. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. We are adjourned.